Henderson, North Carolina, a former slave plantation. All right, this is chapter 2. This is a beautiful place. If you're ever in the area, you definitely to place it on your agenda and come out to visit. I was here last Saturday and I did not want to leave. Wow. All right, here we go. The house you're looking at back during the slavery days was actually the master's house, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Just a beautiful, beautiful place. You definitely need to come out and visit. All right. Here we are. Hello, how you doing, Mr. Spellman?
Good to see you.
Good to see you again as well.
Okay.
So what are we going to do today?
Well, we're going to tour slave plantation, former slave plantation.
Great.
And the master's house.
Okay.
That's now the Spellman house.
This is the Spellman house now, folks, that we're looking at.
Yes, yes. And the Worthams owned this property years ago, and they had 135 acres of land that spread it across all the way down Satterwhite Point Road in Henderson.
Okay.
Across 85.
Right.
And then back this way.
Okay.
Across 85. Now 85 was a dirt road when the Worthams had it years ago.
Right.
And they actually made a deal with the state so that 85 could come right through their property.
Okay.
So they owned on the other side of 85.
Oh,
but
wow.
what I bought was the remaining 16 acres of a 135-acre slave plantation. I started initially, I bought 2 acres here.
Right.
From one of the great-great-grandsons of the Worthams. And this was the first 2.5 acres that I bought here.
Right.
And I had that for a year and didn't even know anything about this house because the trees had grown over
this house.
This house.
Oh, wow.
The trees in front, the pine trees were on the ground, so you couldn't even see the house from the road. I could barely see it from right next door.
Oh, wow.
But there was one of the great ancestors was still living here. Miss Wortham was 97 last July, and she was still living in the house.
Oh, wow.
Her sons came to take her to Alabama, and they were going to sell the property to a developer. And they saw what I had done with their uncle's property.
Right.
And they were fascinated.
Okay.
Because I bought this property because I wanted an acre of land.
Right.
And I wanted chickens, and I wanted a garden.
Okay.
And a place for my grandbabies to grow up.
Right.
And I ended up with 2.5 acres.
Okay.
I got chickens that lay a dozen eggs every 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
I got 3 gardens now. And I built a giant tree house for my grandbabies with a zip line and nature trails.
Okay.
And all the things that kids would want, tire swings, things that we were growing up. So when they saw what I had done here, then they offered the property to me. They wanted to reserve some of their history. I didn't know what history they were talking about, but what they wanted to preserve was their graveyard.
Their graveyard,
that's over here in the white fence. I fenced it in.
Right.
They have granite and marble tombstones from the 1800s, early 1800s, where their family members were buried.
Right. Okay.
I knew about this because I could see it from my property.
Right.
But I didn't know about anything over here until I bought it. I was told that there was a slave grave back here.
Okay.
And when they told me, the older Wortham, that was the son of Miss Wortham that was living here, he said that his dad took him back there. He's 74 now. And showed him when he was a little boy there was a rock turned up.
Okay.
And that was a slave grave.
That was a slave grave.
But he couldn't remember where it was.
Okay.
But he said his grandfather stood on this porch when he was a little boy.
Right.
So that had to be the late 1800s.
Right.
And he said his grandfather told him that a horse-drawn carriage came down this path with a pine box on it, and black people were singing behind the carriage, and they went around this way and into the woods, but they didn't know exactly where the gravesite was.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And my understanding, it was 1 or 2 graves.
Oh, wow.
So when I bought the property, before I bought it, closed on it, the son that sold me the property came and spent a half a day going through the woods trying to find it for me, because I told him, I said, well, that's probably the most important thing with this place.
Yes, sir.
That slave graveyard is somewhere back there.
Yeah, thank you, partner. They're saying this is great footage.
And we didn't know for about a month. We had no idea where it was, even after I bought it. But we'll talk about that later as we continue with the interview.
Okay.
But
right here. Okay.
This is a tribute that I did to Dr. Martin Luther King, and as some of the viewers may know, I did 19 years in prison.
Right.
And it was an injustice, but as we know, we've suffered injustices since way back. But I didn't let it be a time to bring me down. It actually brought me up.
That's right.
Because I spent time with God. I spent time writing programs and helping men that didn't have the opportunity that I had.
Right.
To grow up with a two-parent household, and uncles and aunts that would tell you to, turn your hat around straight, pull your pants up.
That's right.
So I became that uncle. I became that aunt. I became that person with those men in there that didn't know. And I started teaching them different attributes about life, just teaching them how to listen, teaching them how to speak.
Okay.
Look you in the eye when you're speaking, how to do applications for jobs, how to do interviews.
Right.
We did mock interviews. And at first it was just helping 2 or 3 men. And it ended up being the blacks, the whites, the Hispanic, the Christians, more science, the Muslims, Jehovah's Witness, non-believers. It was the Bloods, the Crips, the Aryan Nation, because all of these men had one thing in common, that they wanted to be successful and they wanted to be better than they were when they came in.
Right.
And I say this all the time. We expect for these young people to, we see them when they're 25 and 30 and their pants are down, and they have poor mannerisms, poor speech, and nobody's ever taught them.
That's right. They haven't been taught.
They didn't have that uncle, and they didn't have that mom and dad. So, they were raised by the neighborhood, the corners. They went to the corner. They went juvenile in their teens. They went to the county jail when they were 17. They went to prison when they were 18. And here they are. They returned back to society, and they don't have anything. And they got good moms. They got good grandmas that try to instill these characteristics in them.
Right.
And it's lost somewhere in there.
Right.
So this is where I started working with these men and documenting. And I'll show you more when we go inside.
Okay.
I got a room dedicated to the returning citizens and the people, the men and the women as well.
Right.
That had gone through adversity, as I would say, because that was an adverse situation, just like the slaves.
But
so
you were able to overcome.
And comparisons with what the slaves went through and what I went through for 19 years in prison, so I could relate. Once we found this, I could really relate. Now, this was at a camp that I was at in 2007, and I realized that they had never had a celebration for Martin Luther King or Black history. And this was early January, and the chaplain would be gone for 2 months. Right. And of course, it was white chaplain. And I went to him and asked him, I said, why don't we have a Black history celebration or celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday? And he said that, well, they never had. When he came, they hadn't. And this was on a Friday at 4:30. He was going to be gone for almost 2 months. So I asked him if we could have a celebration. Could he give us permission to use the chapel? He said, well, if you can write something for me that I can have typed up, I will give custody permission to open the chapel for you guys on Sunday. And you can start your celebration. So he actually gave me 15 minutes to run to the dorm and write something. And what I did was I took what Martin Luther King had done for our people, and I used the same principles that I had used for 5 years at that time with the program that I wrote with these young men. And I just spoke from my heart and I wrote this in 12 minutes.
Right.
Got it back to him, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
One day we'll get a chance to read it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
We'll get Lynn to read it.
So the people who are in the chat section, tell us where we're going now. Those of you who are just coming in, we started with the home you're viewing right now was the master's house. And so Mr. Spellman's going to tell us now where we're going.
Okay, this was the master's house. And this house, I was told when I bought it that it was built in 1838. But when the Historic Society came out, they brought documents and census and newspaper articles, and actually the man that built this house died in 1830. So now it's believed that the house was built between 1820 and 1830. So the house in the 1820s, this was considered a mansion. This is the original house, and it's been well preserved. One of the subbies is saying they want you to read that letter. So if he has it available when we go inside Chef Find His Wine, we'll see if we can do that. So everything you're talking about, they want to see it. Okay. Great. I will definitely read it. Okay. Now, this house was the Wortham house. And when I bought the property and realized what it was and the history behind it, I started renaming everything. The house is now the Spellman House, named after my family. You'll hear about the schoolhouse, one of the first schoolhouses in Vance County is on this property. Right. The Worthams and a doctor and a lawyer built the schoolhouse in the late 1800s, one of the first public schoolhouses where one room's not for us, but for them. Right. And in the early 1900s, they moved it here on the property, and one of the great aunts lived in it, and now I still have it on the property. All right. So you'll hear about the schoolhouse that's now named the Summers Cottage. Okay. That's my wife's maiden name. Okay, sounds good. This is the mansion, and this was where the slaves were not allowed in the front area here. They had 135 acres of tobacco, and the slaves had to go through the wooded area, come to the back to their quarters. Right. Because we'll see that we also discovered that some of these sheds that I thought were just storage buildings were actually slave quarters where the slaves lived and while they worked on this plantation. Dr. Davis with, I believe it's University of North Carolina, she's an archaeologist, and she actually verified that some of these buildings were pre-Emancipation Proclamation. Right. They were, a lot of the original structures are still here. Okay. So we'll get to see that. Okay. All right, so we're gonna continue, all right, to walk here. This is my office for Back to Eden. I named the property Back to Eden, back to the beginning. And this is why I have the ducks and the geese and the chickens and ducks and rabbits, turtles and gardens and the pond. And I just want people to be able to come here. People come to tour all the time. Right. But especially kids, so that they can know the history, Black kids to know the history of our people. And I read a lot of books. I saw a lot of movies, but it's nothing like being on this property. Nothing like it. And actually experiencing walking on the same soil that our ancestors did hundreds of years ago, enslaved in chains and never left. Couldn't go to the mall, couldn't use the cell phone, couldn't do social media. Just here. Just here. Worked all day. Oh, wow. Just to eat. But we got to remember that the masters ate first, the animals ate, and then the slaves ate. Right. And we found a remedy that they had for that as well. Right. Okay. So people in the chat section, we're just going down. I think Mr. Spellman's taking us now to the first slave quarter, I guess. Yeah, we're gonna. Well, actually, I asked about this bell. I thought this bell was a dinner bell, and I was told by Charles Merrill, one of our older workers here. He's been around this area, and he's in his upper 80s. Okay. But he said that this bell, being that the slave quarters were so close, this bell was used to ring
Wow.
So that the slaves could hear it that worked in the house. And if they need to change a baby, they needed some breakfast or a glass of water, they would ring this bell even 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And they had to come and they would enter through this door to serve.
Okay.
They could never go past that front area right there. And the back of the house
Right.
was where they took the scraps. And a slave would come and get the scraps
Okay.
for the rest of the slaves.
Okay. All right.
These were some of the slave quarters here. They used them for storage over the years. But what I did was when I bought the property, we started going through the property. We started going through some of the sheds. We started going through the attics.
Right.
There's also another entry to this house right about here. And we found that a lot of artifacts. So we turned this into my museum. So all the stuff you see out here is stuff from the early 1800s, the mid 1800s, and this was actually their little office where they would process tobacco receipts.
Okay.
You'll see those there.
Okay.
They process all the business there, and I actually named these buildings after my deceased siblings.
Okay.
This is the Barber building after my sister. This is the Kermit building.
Kermit building, okay.
That was named after my brother that was actually killed in Vietnam.
Wow.
But this building was actually falling down. And what I did was I cut trees down in the woods, and I split the logs so that I could redo this building and preserve it, because this was one of the main ones that they used because it was so close
to the house.
And from what I was told, as many as 3 or 4 families would live in a building this size, which is about 14.
That's not a lot of space.
No, it's not. And we're going to go inside so you can see
Thank you.
a few of the artifacts.
All right, this is history, folks. A former slave dwelling. Wow.
So we'll see over here is a part of my dedication to family members. And this, I made this in honor of my brother that got killed in Vietnam when I was a little boy.
Okay.
And this is my brother that was military. He was a major in the Army. He passed away in a car accident. And this is my uncle that did 3 tours in Vietnam. So this is their corner. And I'm making it a place of celebration, not a place of sadness.
Right.
And as you can see, this is the original structure from the 1800s, because this beam was actually a log.
Oh, wow.
That was stripped down. Some of this, if you look right here, Lynn, even this beam right here is a log that the bark, they left the bark on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see that.
We actually wired it so that we could see.
Oh,
but
my
of course,
goodness.
There was no wiring in here. And as you see, these are all logs that have been hand cut, and we have the hand cut saws outside on the outside of the building that were left here as well.
Right.
But it goes all the way up to, the wash pans and the potties here. Some of the things that we use for the horses and the animals.
Okay.
So there was just so much left here. And these are actually irons. This is an old drip stove that they use. But these are irons that they would put on the stove and heat up to iron with.
Okay.
And actually, this one was found in the slave graveyard.
Oh, wow. Let me get a close-up of it.
The archaeologists said that when they would leave different items in the graveyard, it was actually, they couldn't put their names on the stone.
Right.
So it was to mark who was buried there. So she said that this person more than likely worked in the house.
Oh,
this
wow.
Is our so this person worked in the house, and they had the iron there. But a lot of these artifacts, things that you see, were actually in the graveyard, covered with leaves that we uncovered, and we'll see that in a few
There's
minutes.
a question in the comment section. Do you have a relative in Brooklyn, New York? Percy Spellman. I think that's what the question was.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Well,
John
we can
Joyner
find
asked
out.
that question, so he's not quite sure. He can find if anyone can find it, Mrs. Spellman can find it.
But these are some of the medicine bottles from the 1800s.
Okay.
And even these with corks in them.
Oh wow.
Are some of the original medicine bottles
That you found here.
That we found here.
Oh wow.
And these are some of them date all the way back to the early 1800s, mid 1800s.
Wow.
We've got some of the first. We've got some of the first Mountain Dew and Pepsi bottles.
Okay,
and
I remember those.
Bottles that were,
oh
even
God.
Clorox didn't come in a plastic jug.
Oh, let me see. I need that. Oh wow.
It didn't come in a
I
plastic
need
jug.
that in my life. Yes.
It came
Okay.
in those bottles. But some very interesting archives here, some things that we've uncovered, and there are many more. And we like this rake. This is probably, being in construction, this is probably one of my most interesting things. This was actually a yard rake.
Oh my goodness.
with nails in it.
Oh
and
wow.
There's a hole here.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
so. We know who invented that, right?
Yes, sir.
This
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, they're enjoying this in the comments section. They are really enjoying this. All right.
You got your wash tub here, and
Okay.
you got your wash tub and your tobacco. These are actually tobacco planters.
Oh, okay. Let me get that.
Drop the tobacco
Pick
plant
that
in,
closer.
and you put it would let you. It would dig a hole.
Okay.
Drop the tobacco plant and a little bit
Okay.
of water around it.
Okay. All right.
And these are harnesses from the mules and the horses that work on this farm.
Wow. Okay.
This is the Perry building
Okay.
right here, named after my brother that we saw on the dedication right there. This is
Right.
the Perry building, and this building was a little larger than that one.
Okay.
So we were told by some of the older people in the area that had structures like this. They're no longer there, but
Wow.
some of the 70 and 80-year-old people said that their grandparents told them about the buildings, and the buildings are no longer there. But when they see them, it reminds them of when they were a kid. And up at the top is where they said some of the slaves even had to sleep in the loft.
Wow.
Said a lot of the families and the older people slept down here, but the younger men slept at the top.
So this is also a former slave cabin.
This is
Okay.
a former slave dwelling as well. Now over here, Lynn, these are the buildings that my deceased siblings are in.
Okay.
And I have this building over here. And what I want to show with the building is that if you look at the structure at the bottom, let's show the bottom. You see where
Okay.
they have rocks as a
Okay.
foundation?
I'll get a close up.
Most of the 1800s, the foundation was rocks stacked on top of each other
Yes,
with
sir.
mortar. They also had these logs, but then they put mortar in the middle of them.
Okay.
To keep the air from just blowing through.
Wow.
And if you look here,
You taught me that last week. I didn't know
look
that.
here,
Uh-huh.
this building is
Same
has
thing.
the rocks.
That's right.
And
Okay.
and even the house. Let's go back to, I want to show you the transition
Okay.
between the 1800s when they built this house and then when they added on. Because it didn't have a formal kitchen or bathroom. But if you look right here, you can see the rocks here that go across here.
Okay.
And they had the mortar, of course, a lot more and more compact than the slave dwelling.
Right.
And if you go here, you'll see where they added
That's
on later.
the difference.
And it's the rock, then cinder block.
Mm-hmm.
That's significant.
Okay.
With the transition and
Right.
the era.
Okay. Yeah, I learned that last Sunday too.
Okay, let's get the golf cart. We'll ride out to the slave graveyard.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, guys. So we're taking a ride now. We're actually going to the slave graveyard.
graveyard.
All right. So here we go. All right, those just joining the chat. We've looked at a couple of former slave quarters. Now we're taking a ride down to the slave cemetery. Okay, and the building right here in front of us was...
This was a supply building.
Okay.
And we'll look at this really quick. This was a supply building with an office in it as well.
Okay.
Where they had 135 acres of tobacco.
Tobacco.
So
okay.
they had a lot of stuff going on
Okay.
here as far as getting it together, selling it. And this was where the animals stayed. There are 6 compartments in here for mules and horses.
Right.
And of course, I've got my bobcat over here now.
Okay.
But they probably had an old mule in there or something. But Lynn and I went up to the top last week.
That's right.
And at the top is where we believe slaves lived at the top as well. Because if they had over 100 slaves here, the ones that worked in the house, and the house slaves lived in these quarters close to the house.
That's right.
Where they could be summoned. But the field slaves were usually out here, and this loft is big enough for probably 40 or 50 people. Right. They're not going to make it comfortable, but 40 or 50 people to live there. And one of the things we have to remember is that when a little boy turned 6 or 7, he was no longer in his mother's care. No. He was out there with his dad and his uncles. They were out there in the fields working. So they, even though these quarters had 5 families in them, right, or 4 or 5 families, it was just the mom, maybe the daughter, and if she worked in the house. Right. But if they were 6, 7 years old, they came up in the loft or to the other structures where they could go straight to the field. Right. Because they were actually property. That's it. So they weren't people, they were property. That was like us having a tractor and a couple of lawnmowers and an extra weed eater. A couple of mules and horses. Yeah. Exactly. So this is where we found out that the slave graveyard was. And as I said, they didn't know where it was. And when we bought the property, we didn't know exactly where it was. Wow. And
okay, here we are, folks. We're at the sacred garden. The seeds planted here are of faith, courage, long-suffering, patience, wisdom, hope. As I talked to Mr. Spellman before, we know this is hallowed ground. This is where our ancestors are buried. The greatest harvest that came from these seeds continue to be the fruit of love. And this was, of course, dedicated by by Kenny and Laurice Spellman. Okay, beautiful.
Now, if we look, we can see this wooded area right here. All of this area back here looked like this. So this is why nobody knew where the slave, or they said
it was all grown up.
The slave graveyard was. But all of this.
Right. Hi, Lola. Right.
Was wooded area. Show them this, Lynn.
Okay. Yes, sir.
That's what it looked like.
So everything was all grown up.
It was grown up like this.
Wow. So that's why no one knew where anything was.
Right. So what we did was, I had my guy, we cut paths through from, that's the old schoolhouse I told you about. Okay. And I cut paths from the schoolhouse through the woods to connect with the big path that I made. Right. The nature trail. And my guys were cutting this path, and they found 6 rocks turned up. I was expecting 1 or 2. Right. It was 6. So they called me. I was on a job site. We came, and when we came and we saw the 6 rocks, I had them clear out as far as they saw rocks. It ended up being 45 to 50, maybe more. Wow. Grave sites.
So you haven't cleared everything out, so you don't know how many you will find eventually.
Right. Right. But in this area, we went as far as we could. Right. And what we did was we just took fence and we put it in. We didn't want to disturb the ground, so we didn't dig holes. Right. We used the holes that were from old trees. We took them up and put a post in so that we could at least fence it off.
Fence it off, right.
And this is a little bridge I built as a crossover from what was something sad and depressing. This is really sacred ground. So this is what I use as kind of a dedication to them that where they are now is forever to be remembered.
Yes, sir. And
So,
they deserve that and much more.
yes, they do.
You are so right.
Because I always tell the children that come back here,
Yes, sir,
that they got to remember that these kids came here at 5 and 6 years old
and never
in
left.
chains. And they died at 70 and 80 years old right here on this property. Never went to the mall, like I said before. Never had a cell phone. Never, had all these things that the kids have now. But they worked from sun up to sundown just for a meal.
Just for a meal. And that was paltry at that.
Right.
It wasn't a decent meal. It wasn't enough to sustain them. So people in the chat section now, Mr. Spellman is showing us, we're actually in the slave cemetery.
Right. And you can see,
So he's showing us the stones.
these are some of the stones here, not now.
Wow.
But if we go over here,
Okay.
you can see.
Okay.
And these are the beautiful flowers that were donated last week by Rolynn's Review.
Yes, sir. For the
they're the
ancestors.
first flowers that were given or put out here for our ancestors.
That's right.
Well, you can see the stones
Yes,
here
sir.
that are in sequence. So it was the archaeologist said that these were intentionally done like this in a row.
Wow.
So that they could, kind of have some idea of
where people were buried. Yeah. Oh,
this
wow.
is where we found a lot of artifacts out here.
This is where you found a lot of artifacts.
Yes, a lot of them were out here. I didn't realize what they were, but I saved them. And then
Yes, sir.
Dr. Davis actually explained to us why these things were left out here. It was everything from irons to certain bottles and certain medication bottles. There were horse straps out here, things of that sort.
So if someone would say a blacksmith in life, maybe someone would put a piece of metal or something.
A piece of metal
Okay.
or a hammer, leave it out here. But
Wow.
Of course, over the years, if kids had a chance to play out here,
Right.
they would probably move it, throw it away. But because it was so far in this area and it was grown up, it stayed there. It stayed
Wow.
there. And actually, the slaves were the only ones that would come in this area because this is where they buried their loved ones. This is where they ate. This is where they had church. Because the pond that was here is right back here.
Right.
Right behind us. And the dam broke, so the pond grew up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The pond grew up. But I'm restoring the pond.
Okay.
In the next month.
Yes, sir.
Dig it out and restore it.
It sounds like I have to come back for another trip. So the people in the comment section are just saying this is just stunning.
And these are some more of the
Okay.
stones. And this is the thing we have to see that I didn't realize until I was told about the
Yes, sir.
Slaves being buried in pine boxes. And, we see the cowboy movies and they're buried in
Pine boxes. Yes, sir.
But with this family right here, we'll see the other graveyard.
Yes,
shortly.
sir.
But the other graveyard for the family, they have marble and granite tombstones.
Of course. We just have a stone, right?
And the ground is not unlevel. Like you see these humps and hills?
Yes, sir.
These came because the pine boxes over time would collapse.
Oh.
And that's why you got all these fragments.
The humps.
This is the only place on this 16 acres of land that you got crevices. And that's because the pine boxes have collapsed.
Okay.
Over in the family cemetery, they have
Right, Lola.
concrete tombstones, and the ground is level. You'll get to see that.
Yes,
but
okay.
Here, these pine boxes over the years have collapsed, and they're right here in the midst of where all the stones are.
Okay, you see people in the comment section. I'm still sharing the graves of the ancestors, okay? Wow.
Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the, Mr. Merrill was telling us about the trees. They would always allow the slaves to be buried by some of the biggest trees on the property.
Yes, sir.
Because they wanted to find a tree that had an arm on it. And that arm would signify that they could throw a rope across it and hang them. So a lot of times they would throw a rope across the arm and just leave it as a deterrent.
Yep.
To keep the slaves from leaving. So as I went through here over the month,
right.
I looked up and realized that this is the tree that has the arm on it that they talked about.
So
And
they
of
would throw
course-
a rope. So the owners would throw a rope
across the tree and just leave
as
it
a
hanging
threat,
there.
so people knew not to run away.
Exactly. Even if nobody ever got hung there, they used that tree. And this tree, I was told, is about 400 years old.
Which one?
This one.
Oh, okay,
And
folks.
this one may be about 250, 300 years old.
Wow.
But this tree, now that branch is about 25, that arm is about 25 feet up. But of course, 100 years ago, it was probably 12 feet up. But now it just all makes sense.
Oh, wow.
The two big trees, the tombstones or the slave
Right.
graves, and the arm.
I know, Lola, it is sad. It really is. I'm with you, Lola. I'm with you. Okay. I'm with you. Tell you, only God knows the atrocities that happened at this place.
Well, if these trees could talk, they would tell stories about, how people came back here and described. They couldn't leave. There was no fence to keep them in. But where are you going to go?
Okay, that
You're
part.
thousands of miles from where you came from.
So you're stuck.
You don't know
here.
Which direction to go. Thank God for people like Harriet Tubman.
Oh, yes.
That had the consciousness, and they had the tenacity, and they were brave enough to even try.
Exactly.
And to bring their people to go through and gather their people to get away from this atrocity. But it's just amazing that our people endured this, and they withstood this, and we still,
Still enduring, still striving. Wow. Amazing. For those of you just coming in, we just left the Sacred Garden, the actual slave cemetery. Mr. Spellman just took us through there, and we were able to view some of the slaves of our ancestors. Okay. Oops.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so where are we going now?
We're going to go through a trail that we cut, and we intentionally tried to create a happy place once I discovered everything that was going on here.
Right.
I had already started with the 2 acres of land for my grandbabies so they would have a fun place. But now, with God blessing us to get this.
What about this?
This is one of the storage buildings.
Storage
right here.
that they had on the plantation.
That was a storage building there. And there are numerous fruit trees. We got fig trees, apple trees, pear trees.
Didn't you say the slaves made their own preserves?
Right. But there's a grapevine right here that was for the family.
Okay.
But what happened was the slaves, and we found this out. We cut this trail through here when I bought the property last October.
Right.
In December, we cut this trail to join with my other property.
Okay.
So this was all wooded area.
Oh, wow. That was a lot of cutting.
This is trees. This over here was trees. And what we did was we cut the trees down and we planted grass, winter grass, and then in the spring we planted grass.
Okay.
And this is a heart going into this path to show that it's a place of love now.
Right.
A place of peace. And we cut these nature trails through. And we brought all these rocks in by hand. We cut everything through here by hand. And we brought the gravel in, of course, on a trailer, but everything else is just a place where we can come.
Right.
And people can come and have their picnics and have a fire and just
good times.
Spend time with their families. And this path actually goes to the back of the slave graveyard.
Okay.
That will connect to the back of the slave graveyard.
This is beautiful.
So we got fire pits and benches and picnic tables throughout 12 acres.
Okay.
Because we want people to feel free when they come here.
Right.
Without restrictions. And you know, you can come here with people can come with their families and just walk and sit and talk and you know, cook out. So I just wanted to turn it into a place of fun and peace.
Right.
And the entire trails are lit up where at night it looks like its own city.
Okay.
This is another path that we cut that goes to the back of the slave graveyard.
Okay.
So I want to have access from all over the property to get back to the beginning.
Okay.
So
it's beautiful.
And this is where the pond was before it grew up. Now, I pointed out that the slaves had to eat after the masters and the animals.
Right.
So a lot of times they had very little or no food.
Oh, yes.
So what they did was they would plant grapevines in the woods, and they would always be able to harvest grapes. Mm-hmm. So when they harvested grapes in August and September, they made preserves, they made jellies, and they also made wine. But they would tie a rope around the jar and lower it into the pond so that it would stay cool all summer long for the next spring and summer. But in the wintertime, they pulled it out so it wouldn't freeze. Right. And they kept it hid somewhere that they could always have food.
Oh, yeah.
So what I did, I have an app that shows me what plants are, it identifies plants.
Very handy.
So what I did was I came through in the spring and started noticing all these grapevines, and there are 4 different types of grapes planted on this property, and they're all throughout this area. And some of the grapevines were 100 feet up in the air,
wow.
had grown up in the trees, and we had to bring them down and trellis them.
Right.
But this we actually cut through their grape orchard. They had an orchard back here that the masters didn't even know about. If they did, they would have had them cut it down.
Of course.
Because they didn't come back here. They only hunted in other parts, but they weren't coming back here in the woods.
Right.
So all these flags right here, these blue flags are where I marked the roots of the grapevines that go up. So you see blue flags on both sides. Okay. Where I came through, I took about a month to find them all.
Oh yeah, I see them. I do.
And as you see, the vines go up here, and this is the root of it. Okay. Right here, where you see the blue flags. So next year, hopefully, now that we got some of them off the ground, they'll produce some fruit.
You think that? Oh yes. Do you think that the slaves maybe came back here and did some hunting, to supplement their diet?
Of course they did. Of course they did. They couldn't have guns to hunt with, so they had other methods of trapping and catching small animals, rabbits, and
because again, the food they were given was not enough for the work they were doing. That food was not enough to sustain anyone.
Exactly.
A flea.
Right. So of course they in the fields, they had tobacco was the main crop, but there was another field over there about 2 acres that they had the family food they were growing. Right. And of course they would eat from there while they were doing that.
Oh yes.
But only the select slaves could probably work with their food.
Right.
The rest of them were working with their product to earn the money.
Oh, okay.
This is eventually going to be a camper's ground.
Oh, wow.
That we're going to be able to back campers in here.
Okay.
And I'm going to do a acre of solar panels to power everything that's on the property. Okay. So that's we cleared all this out about a month and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
This was another 2.5 acres that was a part of the property that they didn't even have on the map. Really? Yes. I had a survey and found out that God had blessed me with another 2.5 acres.
Oh, goodness.
But this is the old pond before it grew up, and we started clearing it out. We started cutting through so that we could put a bridge.
This is the pond the slaves used?
Right. This
okay,
is the
let
one
me get a
used.
close-up of that. Yes, sir.
Let's look at it.
Okay, so Mr. Spellman is going to take me and show me. He's going to show me where the pond was that the slaves actually used.
This is the pond. This pond is from here all the way across, but when the dam broke, the
Okay.
trees started growing back up because it wouldn't hold water.
Okay.
So when the dam broke, the trees grew up. So we started about a month and a half ago, cutting the trees down
Right.
again to dam it back up so that the water, it'll retain water. And then I'll put picnic tables down here so that people can actually come and sit.
Okay, so the dam broke and then the pond dried up.
Right, the pond dried up because this is Highway 85, and there's a ravine that goes out here.
Okay.
And water goes under the.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. As we go around. Okay.
So the slaves had a lot of area that they could go through the woods, and of course they had their own paths cut.
Right.
So that because everything you see in these paths, in these trails, it looked like this. This is what it looked like 2 months ago. This area.
Right.
We started the other area.
Oh my goodness.
Last winter, but this is what this path looks like. And 2 months ago, we started cutting this through here so that we could come to the other end of the pond. We couldn't find the pond for about 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
And finally, when we found out where it was, then we made a passageway to be able to drive the golf carts and our vehicles back here.
Okay. Hey, this is really something.
And this is where we're going to build our pavilion.
Okay.
Next year, bathrooms, kitchens, and area that you can have cookouts, your family reunions, and
that sounds good
other
to me.
gatherings. But since I couldn't do it this year, I planted watermelons and cantaloupes out here.
Right.
And the deers tried to eat them up, so I had to put an electric fence up. And
they eat everything.
Yeah, they eat everything. But I planted collards and cabbage for the fall. This is late corn. I have some seeds left from the summer, so hopefully we'll get a couple of ears before Thanksgiving.
Hopefully.
And
it's tasselings.
So we've got collards, we got cabbage, we got mustard and turnip greens growing out here. And look at the collards. Aren't they pretty?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. So you know you got to come back and get some.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the pond that I dug.
Okay.
So we're coming up on the back of the one that I dug last summer.
Right.
And we'll go up in the front of it.
Okay.
So we're approaching the back of the initial 2 acres that I bought.
Okay.
And this is what the family saw when they were going to sell the 14 acres. They wanted to preserve some of their heritage and not just sell it to a developer.
Right, that makes sense.
But that was their initial plan.
To sell it to a developer.
To sell it to a developer. Because now it's zoned commercial on that side.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh my God. So you know what was going to happen to this property.
Right, right.
They were going to mow over everything and put up some buildings.
We would have ever seen or discovered the graveyard.
Thank God for you, Mr. Spellman.
I mean, I was a day when they were going on a Thursday to meet with the lawyer and the developer to sign the contract, and they flew in. The son flew in from Arizona, and he saw what I had done with his uncle's property. They called me over and said, "Look, if you're interested in it, we'll sell it to you, so that we can preserve at least our family graveyard." They weren't really concerned about the 2 rocks he told me he had.
Of course not. But, the family.
But the family cemetery that we'll see is right here.
That's
what he's concerned with.
All right. Beautiful.
That's nice. The leaves are falling.
Oh, yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Oh.
So I come back here sometimes and I think about the fact that our ancestors couldn't even, walk out to the pond and sit or, enjoy a book. And it's just a blessing. It's humbling.
It is. It's very humbling.
Yeah, to know that, as I said before, and I tell my granddaughters that they always ask, well, granddaddy, how does it feel? And I say, well, now the slave has become the master.
Exactly.
So I can go where I want to go on this property.
Don't have to ask anyone.
Anybody that I desire to come here can come.
Thank you, Lola.
There are no restrictions. And it was such a restricted place for our ancestors. So I want it to be a peaceful and free place.
Right. They love it in the chat section. They're saying it's beautiful, just like me. They're saying the same thing I said. Beautiful. Wow. I would come back here and you'd never be able to find me. I would be back here just reading a book, relaxing.
And we were trying to give the ducks some food last time, so.
They're always up for that, right?
Yeah.
They're always ready to eat. They're all coming now.
Ducks and the geese.
I see. Everyone's coming to get a mouthful. Wow. Yeah, you could just come back here and just meditate, relax, de-stress.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Sometimes I get off work and I'm back here with the dogs.
Really?
Yeah, I'm back here for hours. And I think it means more.
Right.
Now with knowing the history, it means so much more.
It's more special to you?
Oh yeah, because I can relate to them having all this wooded area and nature and never being able to enjoy it.
Right.
You want water?
Sure.
Okay. Show my little refrigerator.
Okay. You have a refrigerator out here too? I don't know what I'm going to do with you. You sure do.
It's in a little tree house.
That's okay. Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. All right. How you doing, Sugar Daddy? Yeah, we're Sugar Daddy, you'll have to go back and check the replay. We visited the slave graveyards and some, oops, hold up please, let me get this, thank you, oh, got you. And thank you, slave cabins, and we're still just everywhere. This is beautiful. So now where we going, Mr. Spellman?
We're going up to the front of the, this is the initial property that I purchased to build a tree house for my grandbabies and have a fun place. So this is, and I got old-fashioned tire swings hanging up and picnic tables everywhere. And this is actually a kid's zip line right here. On this side coming from the treehouse.
I see it.
And this is an adult zip line on the other side.
Yeah, we need a zip line too.
So this one zips all the way to the pond. And this is for the adults and the other one is for the kids.
Wow. Yeah, those of you who are just coming in the live chat, you definitely missed, you definitely need to check the replay. We've already visited the slave cemetery and the slave quarters, and where are we going now, Mr. Spellman?
We're going back to the big house to go inside.
Okay.
And they'll get to see some of the documentation from the Historic Society.
Okay.
And from the archaeologists, as well as to see my dedication room to some of the guys that I taught the program to that I spoke about earlier.
Okay.
Some of the men that have done time in prison, some 15, 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And I helped them to get out and start their own businesses.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of those men work for us now, like Ken's Construction Company.
Okay.
So that's a blessing as well.
Of course.
But the program that I wrote, it was really frowned upon because I was an inmate and I was an inmate of color.
Yes.
So occasionally they would just, they thought I was trying to pull everybody together to break out of prison.
Oh, no.
Because it went from 2 or 3 guys at a table, and that's the Rolynn Review call right there.
That's right. You know it. That's the Rolynn. That's the Rolly. Woo!
Okay, that's the rolling machine, right?
That's it.
Okay. So we're going in the Spellman house.
Yeah, and those of you who are just joining the chat, this, like I said, if you check the replay, we're going now inside the master's house. Mr. Spellman informed me that the slaves, of course, we're going in the entrance that they had to use. They could not enter the home from the front. This bell right here, as we're walking in, Mr. Spellman said that it still works. Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Spellman said this is the bell that the people in the house would ring. That let the slaves know that they needed something in the house and they needed to come. Thank you, sir. All right.
This is where the house stopped. It stopped right here. Mm-hmm. This was actually the porch in the 1800s.
This was the porch in the 1800s.
Right. And the kitchen part was where they had the wood stove over here where you see the sink.
Okay, perfect.
And this was the actual back door.
So slaves built that back door, right?
So you can see that this is hand carved. And you can even look at the knobs to tell it's got the skeleton key. I got one over there.
Oh, wow.
This was a handmade door. These cabinets are the original cabinets. And they say that the family built these cabinets, but we all know who built the cabinets.
We know.
Okay.
So, yes, sir.
And there's I think I got one of the keys. I want to show them that.
Yes, sir. We're inside the former master's house.
And this is the key. And some of us old folk remember these keys.
Skeleton key.
In grandma's house.
Yeah.
Great grandma's house. But this key fits all the doors inside.
Really?
Yes. This key can lock all the doors inside. The same key.
Oh my goodness.
So,
I learned something new today.
Well, we'll go this way, and this was actually their formal dining room. This was during the
slavery period. This was where the master's family had their dinner.
The master's family ate. This was the kitchen where the food was prepared, probably on a wood stove.
Well, okay.
And they would close this off when they ate. They would eat here. And then these other rooms were bedrooms, but I turned them into conference rooms.
Okay.
Of that sort. But this is the former dining room, and then this other room is what they call the sitting room.
Okay.
We started calling them living room.
Living room. Okay.
But that's the sitting room. But some of this furniture is from the 1800s. They had auctions before I bought the house, and they had sold about 70% of the furniture. And I hadn't closed on the house. I was living in the other property, two acres over here.
Right.
And the auctioneer got sick and couldn't come. So they called me over to see if I wanted any of the furniture. And I just bought everything that was left. I made them an offer to buy everything that was left.
Is this original?
That's one of the original lights. That came in the early 1900s, but I want to show you something.
Oh my God, that is beautiful.
Look, I'm going to show you something that's even more interesting.
Wow.
This light right here was actually an oil lantern. And somebody in the 1900s, when they got electricity, they ran a wire from here through here, and they ran the wire there. They took the wick out, and they put a bulb in here, because this is the refill reservoir right here.
Oh, and wow.
That's the area that holds the oil, and this was an original oil lamp that hung up in the ceiling, and you didn't even see this on movies.
No.
But so in the 1800s, for a house like this, if you look at the movies from the mid 1800s, late 1800s, if people had a 3-bedroom house,
it was a mansion.
Cartwrights, and you know they had a fireplace, they had a nice house.
They had a mansion.
This is twice as big as that. So this is 1800s, and you can imagine the money that these people had.
And we know who made them the money.
That's right, and the house is still intact.
Wow.
These are the original floors, and you'll see where these floors were. You know, I'm a carpenter by trade. So these floors, especially these, this one is newer. That was probably early 1900s, but this is 1800s.
1800 wood.
This is
no particle board.
No, this is early 1800s, and so is this one in the sitting room.
Original doors.
Yeah, these are the original doors.
Wow.
Here, and this goes into my dedication room, and this is the room that I dedicate to the guys that I was in prison with, and actually my family as well. That's my grandmother, and because it's the Spellman house now, remember that.
That's right.
So where the slaves couldn't walk, now they got their pictures. But that's my grandmother, my mother, my aunts. That's my mother and father on this side. That's my mother at the top. My mother and father on this side. Wow. And this is me and my siblings who were in the 60s, probably when some of you weren't even born.
No, I wasn't born until the 2000s.
Okay. These are actually a collection of beard cups. These cups all have a little lip on them, and they would take the shaving brush and dip it in here.
Oh, yes.
And these are actually beard cups. That's about 1800, it says. These are actually beard cups, and a lot of this painting on it is hand painted. Yeah, a lot of it is hand painted. So these are beard cups. That's a collection of
beautiful
beard cups. And as you see right here, and these are some of the things we do here at the property is back to Eden. We named the property Back to Eden. It's no longer a plantation. The history is plantation, but this is Back to Eden. But I had a 70-year and over celebration for people in the community that were over 70. And we gave them flowers, we gave them gifts. We had 3 chefs prepare a meal, and we served them in the former plantation house. And black and white were able to sit in at that same dining table and dine where the blacks only served. And that was significant. The newspapers covered it. So we had Millennials Matter event. About a month ago, we had a back to school giveaway here. We had several family reunions, so well, actually 3 this summer, where families came and had their family reunions.
Okay.
And the history meant more than having a venue for your families to gather. So people came from all over the United States to their family reunion. Okay. And this is a part of the program that I wrote. The program is MEAT, and I'm going to read that for your viewers. But the program is MEAT, M-E-A-T. And the M is for ministry and management. The M is for ministry management. The E is entrepreneurship. The A is accountability, being accountable for your actions. And the T is training, to be able to be trained and to train someone else. Ministry is the act of serving. Management, managing your own affairs. Even while you're in prison and you're only making $5 a week. Right. Manage your affairs. Buy stamps to write your kids. Call your parents. Do outreach. Send birthday cards and get well cards to people. And we had charts. We charted all this information. And these are testimonies from hundreds of men that have gone through this program and become successful. Both of these books are testimonies. And these are businesses that I started. We started 17 businesses from prison for people's family members. So that's how powerful the program was. And the program still is. And I'll show you where President Trump, Bishop Harry Jackson, they were signing a bill to help returning citizens. And when I got out, 3 weeks after I got out of prison, they invited me to Chicago to speak at the 2019 Recidivism Conference.
Wow.
So they had an NBC reporter to actually do the filming of the DVD to take back to Washington and Maryland for them to actually see me do the presentation on this program. This program, and I'll say this, I'm not marketing the program. I live the program every day.
That's right.
But this program, 1,475 men came through this program. I didn't set out to write it. I set out to help some men that didn't have what I had an opportunity to have before I was incarcerated unjustly. But this program has helped so many people that it's amazing. And here's some of the people right here. These are pictures of some of the people that the program has helped. This guy had 2 life sentences, but he's a lead man for my company now. And I think you met my secretary, Jennifer. Did you meet her?
Yes, sir.
But her husband is on this picture. He's one of my lead men, and Jennifer's my secretary now.
That's right. She called me yesterday.
So the program was actually being taught as far as the Philippines. And this is where Secretary General for the Bicol region of the Philippines, Sudie Pinaflor, actually taught the program. She was Secretary General, but she couldn't teach it in the government departments because it wasn't sanctioned by the U.S. So what she did was she would have cookouts and picnics.
Right.
And she'd bring the head of the police department, fire department, FBI, SBI, and she would actually teach the program as you see here. She would teach the program to them. I was still incarcerated.
Wow.
This is a part of what the program did when I was there for 19 years. This is actually 7,437 letters that I wrote to people doing outreach and reaching out to people.
Whoa.
And I can go all the way back to 2004 and tell you who I wrote October 15th, 2004, and what I wrote them about. So this is my iPad, folks.
That's right. Paper and pen still works.
And this is how I raised my kids. These are old file folders, and this was letters sent to my ex-wife and my kids, raising them. So I had letters that I wrote in blue and the responses in yellow. But to show you that regardless of what your situation is,
exactly,
you can still overcome. We're overcomers.
That's right.
And this is why this place is so special to me, is because our people went through adverse situations. And you'll see in this, I spoke earlier about this tribute that I wrote to Dr. King.
Right.
And did I read it for you last time?
I don't think so.
Well, they didn't get to see it.
Right. Because of the snafu we had, the technical difficulties.
But I wrote this in 12 minutes, and it was so that we could have a celebration for Dr. King and Black History Month. But it says Dr. King was born in an adverse time in history. He was faced with many adverse conditions and situations because of the color of his skin. Dr. King made a decision to make positive change, not just for his race, but for all mankind. Dr. King had visions, but didn't sit still and wait for the visions to come into fruition. He began to set goals and make sacrifices in order to enhance and intensify the effectiveness of his quest for equality and to end racial injustice. Dr. King, a scholar in his own right and an ordained minister, didn't just have the passion in his head, but he had it in his heart. He was willing to give his life for what he believes. The decisions that he made back then are results, and the results from the actions that he took are history today. The decisions that we make today are history for tomorrow. We are somewhat like Dr. King, living in an adverse environment under what most may consider adverse conditions. The decisions that Dr. King made were positive. Positive decisions bring positive actions and breed positive results. Just like Dr. King, some of us don't know how long it'll take for us to overcome. But every day that we're here, we must continue to make positive decisions, take positive actions, and expect positive results. Dr. King taught that with God's help, We have what we need to overcome and succeed, regardless to the depth or volume of the challenge. Success begins when the positive moves from your head to your heart. When this happens, positive decisions and righteousness is not just something you think about, it's something that you feel and you act upon. No matter what we are faced with or where we are, what matters is the position of the heart, not the position of the body. Dr. King's focus was not on the blackness on the outside of some, but his focus was the blackness that was on the inside of many. Put aside your skin color because you can overcome adversity by making positive decisions. It's true, friction perfects precious stones and adversity perfects man. Thank you, Dr. King, for the decisions that you made. The result of them are proof that your dream moved from your head to your heart and the work was through your hands in your life. Because of his love for God's people, we now have a pathway paved to many mountaintops. We are free to make decisions, make positive decisions, take positive actions, and expect positive results. It's not what's on the inside, it's what's on the inside of a man that counts. A building will fall without support inside. A uniform will fall without a man inside. And man will fall without God inside.
Very well read.
Okay.
Very well read. Okay. So this is the foyer area.
Yeah.
Is this the original lighting?
From the 1800s.
1800s,
Remember,
okay.
after they got electricity, from the early 1900s.
Okay, early, okay.
After they got electricity, they started replacing all of the lamps.
Right.
The oil lamps with electric. Of course, a lot of us, even into the middle 1900s, were still using the oil lamps.
That's right. The original stairs,
Yeah,
real
these are
real
hand
wood.
Carved. These are
Hand carved by
hand
slaves.
carved.
Wow. Look at that. Why can't we get real wood anymore? It's either particle board or what's that other crap?
LVP, OSB?
Yes, sir. So this was, when the slave owners lived here, this room was
This was a bedroom.
this was a bedroom.
This was a bedroom.
Okay.
And that was a sitting room.
Sitting room, bedroom. Okay.
And I turned this into my office.
Okay.
And one of the things that I did when I was in prison, I took classes. I was already a certified carpenter, and I just continued to take vocational and academic classes and achieving sports, and I coached all over the state. And I got 46 certifications in 13 years of my 19-year incarceration. First 13 years I went to school. I actually studied with the Prison Fellowship organization and for my doctorate in divinity. So I didn't, I'm about 6-7 hours away from that. But all these awards are either in sports or academic. All these are junior college or community college certifications in
Wow.
commercial cleaning, carpentry, computer science, computer systems.
Just wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So now
Original door, 2 more original doors.
Right. We're gonna.
Okay, now this room, when the masters owned it,
this was a bedroom.
This was also a bedroom.
Right.
Okay.
This is a bedroom as well. That they turned in the 1900s into a den.
Okay.
That became a den.
This became a den.
This became a den.
Okay.
So this became a den, and there are there's a bedroom here that they have adjacent to a bathroom after the 1900s.
Okay.
Upstairs there are 2 bedrooms as well.
Okay.
But this is after incarceration. After I got out, this is Coach Ken's course. That's the trailer park that I bought a year and a half ago, about 8 months after I got out of prison. And this was in Chicago 3 weeks after I got out of prison. And this is the Millennials Matter event that I had.
Okay.
And these are some guys that were all incarcerated
Wow.
with me. And this was, I got out in 2019, so that was 2 years after I got out. And that's speaking at a consolidated diesel
Wow.
company for them. And this picture right here is actually 3 weeks after I got out. This is the DVD that President Trump, Bishop Harry Jackson had somebody to come in and NBC actually did the DVD for them.
Wow.
And if you want to scan some of these,
yes.
these are some of the receipts, tobacco receipts.
These are, so I'm scanning, now you're looking at, he said, my partner, Chef Finest Wine, said, where in Chicago was that conference, Mr. Spellman?
It was at the Hilton Garden Inn, I believe it was.
The Hilton Garden Inn,
It was
Chef.
in Oak Lawn.
Oak Lawn.
Oak Lawn.
So what we're looking at or viewing now are original tobacco receipts. Okay. Wow. Okay. And let's see, where are we now? We are here. Mr. Spellman, when I was here last week, you said something about, I want you to talk about the supposed infanticide. Yes.
This was a newspaper article that the Historic Society, Vance County Historic Society, brought me, and this is from, I believe it was 1873, but the owner at the time was George Wortham. He inherited the property from his father, and people working here. And as he was walking through the side, and it was a soapbox with an infant, a mulatto infant baby in the box. And the baby was that raped the slave. He went to the sheriff's department, and that's as far as it went. But the newspapers caught it, and they published that article. But they also said that the mulatto baby was allowed to be buried in the family cemetery, and we didn't get a chance to go over there, but we may stop by before we leave. The family cemetery has marble and granite tomb cemetery, had rocks turned up. But in the family cemetery, there are 2 rocks that are over there.
So you think maybe there was another one, maybe?
Back then, in the 1800s,
the slave
cemetery, they buried them over here, but they still only gave them a rock. They didn't give them a tombstone like you'll see over here. These are pretty nice.
Okay.
And another thing is, this is one of the, this is a census from 1830.
Let me get a close-up.
That shows how many free whites were on the property. And it says males under 5, it was 3 of them, whites. But if I skip down slave males under 10, it was 4.
Okay.
Slave males 36 to 54, it was 2. So that's how they identified us, just like property, you know, John Deere lawnmower, 2 years old or whatever.
Yes.
But then I have, I was able to get this just 2 weeks ago. And this is actually one of the, a will from John Wortham in 1860, where he willed his slaves to his wife Martha. He willed Negro Mary, commonly known as Green, and her children, Peter, Winnie, Celia, and Nancy. Negroes Martha and her children. So they willed the slaves just like a Cadillac or Mercedes-Benz. You're going to will your best stuff to your people.
That's right.
So they only will their house, you know, car that's broke down in the backyard. But they will their best slaves. And this is about 40 slaves in 1860.
Wow.
If you look down, he willed some to his mother-in-law, to his wife's mother. You know, he willed Negroes, Mary, Winnie. And then you go down here and it says to Mary Ann Wiggins, wife of William Wiggins, Negroes Amy and her children, Joseph, Ellen. So when they willed them, they willed the children with them.
Right. No choice, right?
No choice. No choice.
Okay.
But, that kind of gives us a little bit of the history from the Historic Society. And this is I think one of the things that's real interesting. In 1883, it was discovered that through analysis that the water that was on this property, Dr. Dabney, they named the road after him. Dr. Dabney realized that the water had some minerals in it that had healing properties for your digestive system.
Wow.
And they had it tested, and they actually used to sell the water that's on this property all over the country.
Wow.
The name of the company was Henderson Mineral Springs.
Now, is that any relation to the water mineral springs now?
I'm not sure.
Because there is a bottle of water that says Mineral Springs.
Well, mineral water comes from different places all over the country.
I just wondered if that was, wow.
Well, it comes from different places, but they have 2 springs on this property, and now I have 4 wells that pump the same water. And there's some local people that only come here and ask, can they get the water? And
the good water.
Yeah, the good water. So you said to make sure you get some to take with you when you leave.
Yes, sir. So I can live long.
Interesting. The last thing that we see is the cemetery for the Worthams, for the family tombstones, and the mulatto baby, that they actually put a rock in their cemetery. Now their cemetery, I put that fence up. They had done. I want to celebrate the people that really need celebration. And
who built the place?
Built the place and that earned all this.
Wow. Okay. I'll come back and get my water when we're done with the cemetery.
Okay.
Okay.
You can leave it open.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, we're jumping on the golf cart again. What a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Okay, I'm ready. Woohoo! You see what I'm going to be doing when I retire. You already know, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
So if you buy some more property, you already know. Call me. Send me an email. I'll be there.
Okay. Well, we're going to buy your property. I'm going to help you get your property.
Yes, sir, for my museum. Yes, sir.
Get it. Okay.
That works. I'm ready. I'm so excited. This is beautiful, folks. If you're ever in Henderson, North Carolina, you definitely need to stop by and view the property. If you're like me, you're not going to want to go. I think Mrs. Spellman's going to have to call the police and have me physically removed from the property because I don't want to leave. So you're going to call the police on me, Mrs. Spellman?
No, you can stay. I may have to leave, but you can stay.
Say I have a trespasser that refuses to leave my property.
Let's show them that.
Yes, sir.
One-room store.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we had that on one of the.
We did have it on the other. Okay.
But again, for those that haven't seen it, but this is the one-room schoolhouse. My nephew lives here, and I changed the name of this to Summers Cottage, and that's my wife's maiden name.
Okay.
Maiden name Summers.
Okay.
But this is a news article that was done on the schoolhouse, and this is what it looked like.
So do you know that it has the original year that it was actually built?
No, they don't have it. And,
just 1800s.
They have here that the school was moved in 1907, somewhere between 1907.
Wow. Right, Sugar Daddy.
Yeah, and you look at the time of these people, you can tell this is.
You can tell that's 1800s.
They were riding horses and buggies with that. And these are some of the children here. But I made this mural to
beautiful
kind of show the transition between
the decades. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Yeah. This people in the comment section, they're just talking about this place has a lot of history, and it really does, Sugar Daddy. Oh wow. Now we're going, folks. We're going to the Wortham Family Cemetery. So even though Mr. Spellman purchased the property, he still cares for the graves of the former owners. Okay. And again, Wortham, for those of you who are just coming in, were the original owners, okay?
They were the only owners.
Right.
They built the place.
And they held it, they had it until you bought it.
Until I bought it. And about 10 miles back this way, no black had ever owned any property. I'm the first, and I ended up buying this property, and it was a slave plantation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm the first to watch yourself.
Yes, sir.
But these are some of their tombstones from 1851. And you see the difference in theirs and
Yes, sir.
and the slave.
Hi, Real Black. Real Black is in here. I sent you his information for his YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You may be hearing from him because he does these types of things too.
Okay, good.
So George, this is George Wortham.
That's George Wortham that started Henderson Mineral Springs, where they were selling the water off this property all over the country because they had healing characteristics. Dr. Dabney actually had the water tested, and they were able to sell it as a medicine.
Right.
And people came from all over to buy it. Even at 10 cents a gallon in 1800s was a lot of money.
That's a lot
for water.
Right.
And these are the tombstones. These are the rocks of the mulatto baby that they talked about in the article that George Wortham found. George Wortham found a soapbox that had a mulatto baby in it. He took it to the sheriff's department, and he was going to file charges on either one of his family members or one of his workers because they had raped a slave, evidently, because none of that was consensual.
Right.
And
right.
He, unlike most of them, didn't want to just sweep it under the rug. He went to the sheriff, but they actually dropped it, but the newspapers picked it up and stated that they allowed the mulatto baby to be buried in the family.
So they only talked about the one, so obviously there's another.
There's another one right here.
So, any speculation, or do you think maybe it was another baby?
My thoughts is that the newspapers caught the fact that they allowed one to be buried here, and it had to be another one.
Yes.
And the thing is that the baby was born. Okay, the baby was the result of the mix between a slave and one of the owners or one of the workers. But how did it die? That's my thought. My thoughts are, that it didn't die natural causes.
It wasn't, it definitely wasn't natural causes.
Somebody
hide their sins, right?
Yeah, because one of the things is that when the slave women would get pregnant, they didn't even want the masters to know because they knew that in a short period of time the baby could be taken from them or even sold, from infancy. We talked about a couple weeks ago that, your daughter turns 13 and the slave master sends somebody out to get your daughter and say, bring her to the big house.
Yeah.
And that she'll never come back the same.
Don't see him again.
You know that when she comes back,
that's it.
She's going to be totally different. So that's part of the atrocity and the truth of what we're witnessing here. And to be able to walk this ground and know that's only what my mind can imagine of one of the things that happened.
We can't fathom everything that happened here.
You can't.
Too painful, too.
Yes, it is.
So let me ask you a question. So this right here, was he the original George Wortham?
No, George was John Wortham.
John Wortham.
John Wortham was his grandfather.
He was
his
the original.
Father was John.
Okay.
Junior.
Okay.
So George was, this is the one that discovered the baby and wanted to do something about it.
This gotcha.
Is George Wortham.
Gotcha.
This is the one that was the entrepreneur, and he not only had tobacco, but he also had Henderson Mineral Springs where he sold the water. So he was somebody that was, trying to make some things happen. He didn't need his name tarnished because he had the tobacco farming, he had the Henderson.
He had a lot going on, right?
He was dealing with these doctors that were buying his water. So he couldn't afford for something like that. If they found out, it would have been worse than if.
Right.
He could have very well said, expose this, do an article, but then, do away with it.
His business, he didn't want to lose business.
But that's George Wortham, John Wortham. The Worthams actually came to this area in 1790.
Wow.
In 1790, they came to this area. And in 1820, John Wortham built the house that we were in a minute ago.
Is he buried here as well?
I'm not sure where John Wortham is buried, because he was before.
Right.
This is actually his grandson.
Okay. Maybe before they started the family.
I believe he was born. He was the one that came here in 1890. 1790. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So he came here in 1790. 30 years later, he built this house.
Okay.
And his son was John Wortham, that willed his slaves in 1860.
Wow.
To his wife.
History, folks. This is true history. None of that fake stuff you see in the hear about in the history books. Wow. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Spellman. My subscribers are stunned. They're amazed. Some of them are shocked. You go through the entire gamut of emotions here. I'll just thank you for allowing me to return for the second Saturday in a row.
Yes.
To witness history. So you can hear, you can watch things, you can hear things, but it's nothing like actually being there yourself. So yeah, definitely, folks, if any of you ever come to Henderson, North Carolina, please make sure that you stop by here. You will not be disappointed, okay? Mr. Spellman, would you like to say anything else?
Oh, just thank you for viewing, and thank you for following Lynn. She's a great person, has become a friend in just a short period of time. But I'll be on her show tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes, sir.
We'll give you information where you can schedule a tour, and you'll be talking to my secretary, Jennifer. But
yes, sir.
You'll get to meet me. I'll personally do most of the tours for now. But you can hit me up on my Facebook, I guess, Messenger. I spent 19 years in prison, so I'm not that tech savvy. And
you're fine. So
Lynn knows how to find me. Lynn found me through ABC News. They were doing a report on me.
That's right.
And she said she zoomed in on my company shirt. So I made sure I didn't wear a company shirt today. But I'm sure Lynn will give you contact information.
Yeah, make sure everyone who's here, obviously everyone seems to have enjoyed the tour. So make sure you're on the channel tomorrow, 4:00 p.m. Mr. Spellman will be there. So you know how we do it. He's going to, talk to you. And, of course, I'll be reading your questions. Yes, Sugar Daddy, we were willed away just like cattle. So I think Sugar Daddy said shaking my head. So thank God those days are gone. So, yeah. So be thinking about some of the questions that you would like to ask Mr. Spellman, and he's going to share even more information with you tomorrow. So thank you so much for spending your very valuable time here with us today, and I will see you guys tomorrow, 4:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.